Welcome to District 32, immersion, inspiration for ambitious business owners with big dreams.
My name is Lorraine of District 32, and I've got the absolute pleasure of interviewing Dinesh Aggarwal of Fortuna Advisory Group. How are you, Dinesh?
I'm very well, Lorraine. Thank you so much. And yourselves?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you coping with this heat?
Yeah, well, I think we just have to expect that now for the next few months. We haven't had much sort of warmer days as usually starts the summer a little bit early. It's been a bit late, but we have to expect some warm days around Christmas. And I just came back from Gelton yesterday, and you probably can expect it's always a few degrees, a little bit up from Perth. So it was very, very warm there.
Yeah, it's been like crickets. Oh, summer's here.
Yeah,
There's no build up. So listen, Dinesh, we have done several interviews. We have spoken about, leadership. We've spoken about different aspects to building, growing businesses. We've looked at, what businesses need to consider when they're getting to the next stage of growth and scaling, and how they make sure, finance is available and the structures available to do that. So today, what I'd love to focus on is around, once businesses get to a certain level, we need to start thinking about how do we create competitive advantage in the marketplace, and look at how that will help us to increase our market share. So yep. Fortuna Advisory Group, you're a multi-dimensional, multi-service based, multi-award winning company. And in order to get there, you must have carved out some sort of competitive advantage. Can you talk to us about your journey around getting to where you are, what your competitive advantage is, and how you foresee that helping you to increase your market share?
Yes, sure, Lorraine. As you rightly said, we are a multidisciplinary accounting and business advisory practice, and that's the model I had always envisaged. Had my vision when I sort of started, years ago as just a normal tax accounting practice. It's probably over a decade ago, when in the initial days when we were just operating in Joondalup office, I had this interview with this CPA Australia, which was showcasing the public practice, and I had a very clear vision that I want to build a multi-service model. Even though I suppose we were starting to see some accounting practices starting financial planning perhaps in the practice, but what I sort of realized that eventually the clients would need one-stop solution for all their financial services need, because someone who can put a solution together for them, and they don't have to run around various advisors and have that friction between that sort of advice process where it's not the best outcome for the client. So I wanted to have this legal and financial planning and finance along with the tax and accounting, which sort of revolves around mostly your accountant being the trusted advisor. So it's a full solution model type of thing. So and that's how I have built it up, because I had the vision to develop it in that way, and so the whole planning was around that. So if you ask me our competitive advantage, I would say two things. One is our brand, and the second, our multi-service business model, which provides a one-stop solution to all the financial needs of the clients. So from day one, I had carried a strong emphasis as part of our vision was to build this legacy brand. It does take a lot of time, because it's not the same speed up process where you from day one, your entire focus in trying to get as much business you can, versus building a brand from day one and let the business evolve and let the business come to you eventually. And the graph sort of goes upward exponentially after remaining flat for a while, because you're getting your business to survive and enough to sort of then start having your first staff and team and all your overheads. But if you keep your focus right, then you know what you want to sort of evolve as a business in the long run. And also being, that sort of focus on that building a legacy brand, we always embraced the concept of legacy. And that is what our service model delivers, which is helping the clients build their own legacy. And that is a strong message that resonates in our brand, in our culture, in our look and feel and experience which the clients get, or anyone does when they deal with Fortuna. So we are sort of, our model or our mission is to help the clients to reach their full financial potential and achieve the financial security in their life. And we tend to hold their hands as that their game of life sort of unfolds. And we think that is our competitive advantage, because that's what attracts the right kind of clients to us, and we need the right kind of clients.
I really like that, how you've wrapped that around not only your legacy, but your competitive advantage as a multidisciplinary service-based organization that allows clients to create their own legacy, and all the different advice structures around that. That's brilliant. How that's put together. I mean, but did you start off thinking, when you were, year 1 and 2 in business, did you start thinking that's going to be my competitive advantage? Or did that formulate later as you learned and you added on disciplines?
No, definitely. I mean, as I said, the brand, these two things have been the core focus in developing our business model. And when we did our sort of, I mean, I suppose you don't just probably start with the full-fledged strategic planning from day one, but had a clear vision. And then when we sort of got into a full-fledged strategic planning, we did that market study. We researched on the accounting industry because of our vision of evolving into a top 100, which was our 7-year plan. And the formulation of the entire business model then follows your vision, because if you have that clear vision and you roll out a plan to work towards that, then the things start to happen and start to unfold in that direction.
So that really, having that clear competitive advantage, Kavda, allows you to fully understand your ideal customers, their needs, their wants, their aspirations, their fears, and to then, look at increasing your market share for that type of clients. Is that in your, I'm sure it is in your plan to increase your market share for the entire services? Do you look at it that way, or do you have different avenues of marketing where people come in through different doors and then you introduce them to the full model? Or is the full model what you are promoting to your ideal client because that's what they need? How do you go about formulating that?
So there are, different ways of increasing your market share, right? So, I mean, of course, when you're starting, you have some target, and then the target could be a moving target, because when you reach there, it was so easy to reach that point. I want to go beyond that. So that's an evolving aspect of the business, because sometimes you don't even know, you want to be a $2 million company, and then you say, no, well, that was too small a goal. I want to be a $5 million company or a $10 million company. So, but you have to start with a vision that how your business should look like when it reaches its full potential. So now the definition of that full potential, could evolve, because as I said, you might not, you could be a little bit conservative about your full potential. But irrespectively, you define your business, you picturize your business that's how it's going to look like when it's at its full potential. Then you do the market research on the life cycle of the industry in which the business operates, and what are the threats and the opportunities around that industry, because you have to be aware of the market size overall to plan your strategies on how you're going to penetrate into that market. Then you roll out your full marketing plan, along with your full sort of operational capability to handle the growth if that starts happening. Now, this, of course, is going to come with challenges like your capital and finance and the risk associated, but that's a different conversation. But that's the only logical way of you start to having, or if you have to achieve an organic growth, otherwise then you have to go sort of other ways of increasing your market share beyond a certain point. Once you've done your sort of, when you initially launch in the market, there's forces that's going to give you the sort of initial level of business that's going to start getting attracted, but you reach a point where then it needs much more effort to grow beyond a certain size. So you look at sort of acquisition, mergers, and things like that. But then various mixture of sort of strategies in your entire market share plan will come in. But broadly, when you're doing a market study, you have to look at, okay, well, you either have to penetrate into the market because you've studied the market. There's a certain size of the market. There's so many players, in your competition in that market. So you have to either penetrate through that competition because you think you've got some better solution to offer, and you can start sort of achieving, your market share by acquiring the market share from your competition. But if there is the level of competition is at the level where product differentiation or a service differentiation is not going to cut through, then you have to look at the market expansion. Okay, well, how can I push the size of the market itself that gives me a bigger market share to be able to create my own market size, because it's going to be very hard to acquire the share of market from my competition. So that's when you look at diversification strategies, and that's what we did. We, in our multi-service model, had a market expansion strategy by bringing the diversification element in it. So we went beyond accounting and we diversified into these other services as a financial services hub or a solution. And we of course, to answer your question, but from that perspective, that our overall size is what sort of we have focused on. Each division operates in a little bit different way, in a different size and dimension, and the growth associated with each division is different because the forces that play around that division are also different, right? So there's different type of legislation in financial planning and compared to the challenges of operating a legal practice versus accounting traditionally. So even though our marketing plan has elements to address each division in its own way, but there's an overall branding and marketing strategy which attracts business to the group itself. And a lot of times the interdivision business happens within the group itself, and it doesn't really matter which division is at the front end to attract the customer. The model is to how do you then sort of retain and provide the maximum value to the client once they start their journey with Fortuna.
Which is, you've managed to nail it. And I think every time I talk to you, you're underway with another merger or another acquisition, which is great. So, you're a really great example of businesses on how to, achieve that growth through the different avenues. But what would you say, Dinesh, to perhaps a newer business or a business, that's maybe 1-2 years old, who hasn't mapped out, the vision or the strategy or a clear competitive advantage? But if I take a step back, how I was always taught, was you would go to the market, you would find a gap in an ideal world, you would find a gap, create a marketing strategy, and then develop your operations to support that marketing strategy or that competitive advantage. But that's not how we work. We say, I'm good at this, I like to do my accounting, we sell, then realize we need to create some sort of competitive advantage to compete. So we do it a little bit backwards. But what sort of, initial advice would you give a newer business owner who might not have considered what their competitive advantage is? What sort of advice would you give them on starting to formulate or starting to think about that?
Yeah. So, as I just briefly mentioned that, when you launch into your own business, as, let's say you've been working and, had enough of it, I want to start my business journey, and you jump into it. The pressure from day one is to secure enough business to survive, right?
Yeah.
And then create a stepping stone to go to the next level. So, and there is, that initial force of attraction when you jump out. There's energy, there's motivation, and there is that attraction as well. There's those initial level of clients, customers, which are in the market floating around, which are going to attract you. And you haven't got the thinking process behind it, that what is my value proposition, what is my brand, what service experience am I going to give, what is my long-term client acquisition and retention strategy. So, and then as you hit sort of that point where now you have to start facing the competition, then you think, well, you have to now distinguish yourself to be able to secure more business, because now you're in the competition area. So, but I think if you're really getting into the business and you get into even with the launch phase with a bit of more planning, it's going to need more lead time, which means it's going to need some capital and finance to be invested, because service is the easiest business to enter into, because there's, you don't have to acquire plant and machinery and land and building. It's not a manufacturing or a goods business where you have to invest capital in starting the business. So it's sort of the least resource required business to start any service. You maybe just put a website up, get some business cards, and you go out networking, and you start put the word out there. But if you think that at par with any other business which is going to require some sort of capital to get started, then you understand there's a bit of a level playing field. You're starting a business journey, it's going to need some capital, and you need to plan that well ahead. Can I secure some capital before I heading in? Because you don't have that pressure. So whether you save money or raise capital, whatever you're going to do, you need to have behind you. Then you have the right sort of mindset. You've got that bandwidth in your head that you're going to be able to put some business planning in place, because you get some money to to secure yourself, to buy that time when you're not earning the income. So then you think through, okay, what value am I going to offer? What's my value proposition in the market, right? So and then you create a plan, and then you launch a plan, and then you have a consistent message, not at the beginning, but while you working through, and you don't lose all that time, because at all the stages you're putting a strategy in implementation. So otherwise you lose those 2 years of just securing the initial business, and then you hit a point where it becomes really difficult to penetrate into the market. But if those 2 years you had a plan which is working in implementation on the side, the business will start coming in, but then it will start evolving, and in 2 years would have built up some foundation where you've created some sort of a value proposition for yourself in the market.
And I think a lot of what you say, it always comes back to the same, because it is what it is. We need to have a plan. We have to have a plan. We have to have it mapped out. Ideally work with somebody else to help us to build that plan. We can't see from inside the tin. But what I often hear from business owners, Dinesh, is, well, what could my competitive advantage possibly be? I don't want to compete on price. a lot of people I hear, we've got great customer service, but great customer service isn't answering the phone. That's I should hope so level of service. How do business owners go about deciding how they're going to compete? And I think that's an operative word there. We just decide in advance how we're going to compete and then, build our operations to support it. What sort of stories do you hear or struggles do you hear from your clients around, starting to think about how we can compete around that value proposition?
So, as you rightly said, Lorraine, that some of the words we use are cliche, right? Planning, cash flow. Those are cliche words, but you can find some synonyms or other sort of dictionary alternatives of those words. But at the end of the day, what matters is the essence and the meaning behind that word, and whether we have this business planning. When you go out in the market, everyone trying to sell a business plan. I don't think it matters what the business plan is going to do. It's the message behind that you have some sort of a structure on which you're going to build your business. So if you ask me now, we got some experience behind us, we've got some success behind us, and we get a business idea to roll out another division, another service, another business opportunity, and we can go and experiment that and throw some capital and take the risk. But we wouldn't go and jump into a business idea without putting a plan behind it. And every plan is going to involve some kind of research on that business opportunity. So it is important that, as I said, you need to get to ground zero. You need to do that research on that business opportunity. Every business owner who's starting that journey is so passionate about it. He thinks that, he's got this idea, and that's what the market is just waiting for them to bring it out, and you're going to jump on it, right? But when you actually get there, then you realize that, okay, you haven't done enough market study. You don't know what your customers actually want. So as we see in our normal day-to-day business experience, that even the very established businesses, when we get to sort of discuss about marketing, we end up starting at or start from scratch or get back to ground zero, saying, okay, let's start studying our customers, what the market wants, what the customer wants, what is our product, what are we delivering, is there a gap, and are we trying to bridge that gap? So where does it come back to? It comes back to the customer need analysis, not your service, not your product. The emphasis doesn't have to be on your product or a service, and that's normally most of the startups or the any service provider, when it starts their business journey, it gets onto the round foot. Okay, they have so much confidence on their product and service, and they think that that's what the customer is waiting to get. But it needs to start with the customer need analysis. It needs to start with what the market needs. So unless you do that market research and try to discover how your service is going to to address that gap or that market need, you will have that struggle. And as I said, it doesn't addresses the question that the phone is going to ring from day one or not, whether you got money coming in the bank and whether it's going to pay your bills or not. Because that challenge, you have to take it in stride and start with that in mind from day one and be prepared for that aspect. And I think that brings a more structural and strong foundation. The success will come. It's the timing aspect you can't control, but if you put the timing aspect in your plan and in your stride, then you have a better chance of success and a more long-term success.
What do you foresee the pitfalls might be? And so imagine I'm a new business owner and I am a bookkeeper.
Mm-hmm.
and I'm looking at the amount of small businesses in Australia or Western Australia, and I see, that there are millions of businesses, 97% of sole traders. So the market share size is large.
Mm-hmm.
What are the sort of pitfalls that business owners would make if they just took that at the surface value? What else do they need to look for under that market share? How would they go about finding, the needs of the size of that market? Because only a portion of that might be needing bookkeeping services. How would they, what mistakes do people make, and how do they go to the next level there?
See, most of the time, but when let's say, give an example of bookkeeping, what we'll do, you'll start a bookkeeping business and you'll go hunting for clients and customers, and you're just having multiple discussions, you're going to various events, or anything can fall in, and I'll take it because I want to get started, right? So, and it comes back to the same concept. So whether it's a bookkeeping business or any other service, so if you try to identify that, okay, what sort of bookkeeper you want to be, what sort of businesses you want to cater to, because within the bookkeeping there's a sort of vast variety of shape and size and industry businesses where you can operate in. So you might say, okay, I just want to focus on some sole traders. Generally, they are one-man bands, like a trade business. They don't understand the books. They normally struggle. They have lack in administrative and record-keeping skills. I want to target that market first before I go into anything, right? So you've narrowed down your market size initially to focus on that type of customer. Yeah. So you're kind of only hunting for those customers first. You're having a more meaningful conversation when you go and talk to someone. You can do your market research and study based on that. You can do a geographical study around where you're located, where you're operating from, if you're working from home or you're starting an office, whether you're going to work remotely or you're going to work in clients' premises. So that's another question. You then start, okay, well, I'm going to target the customers who would like the facility of the bookkeeper coming at their premises, helping them with the paperwork and get them sorted. All right, that's what I'm going to do. My capacity is going to allow me 10 customers to handle at a time. And that's what I'm going to focus on. I'm going to find 10 customers who need me to go to their premises 1 day a week, half day a week, and help them with that. Well, that's your target market. And it's not going to be difficult to find those 10 customers versus going out and saying, oh, well, I want to secure X number of bookkeeping clients. In what shape, size, dimension, industry, I don't know. It's very hard because you're not clear in yourself, what is your target customer. You're not having that meaningful conversation, and you're not going to attract that right kind of the customer, which is going to make you, happy and satisfied and give you that satisfaction you're getting from your job. So, but if your target is, okay, I'm gonna secure a bookkeeping project which is going to give me 2.5 days worth of work in a week. Okay, well, that's, I need to then target a business which has got 20 staff. They're going to have a payroll running every week. They're going to give me a substantial amount of work, and that will keep me, survive. My survival will be taken care of, and then I can start looking for other small projects on the side. Well, it's a different approach. Then you need to go with that angle, and then reach out to those customers, offer yourself having those skills in that particular, because when you go there, you're addressing the right needs of that kind of a customer, and you'll find that, because that's the type of people. It's just putting out to the universe that that's what you're there for. So that's what I believe in.
That's really great, and it's really some solid advice for business owners around. You did mention there, first of all, find out what kind of business you want. Do you want to work for larger companies? Do you want to work this amount of hours? Do you want to have an income? Do you want to have staff? And then build the vision around that. But then what you also said was, in order to generate or create some sort of competitive advantage in the market, we're really looking to specialize or niche. So if you're only providing one service to one customer and getting better at that conversation, so we can have more intimate conversations, and that suits your goals of the business, then that carves a a positive message, a positive brand message through you in those first 2 years, that you're that kind of person who works only with, solves those problems for only that one kind of industry. And that in itself creates market share, which will, attract more of the same kind of people to you. Yeah,
exactly. We wouldn't have been able to, from day one, when we started Fortuna as an accounting practice, we wouldn't have gone and said, oh, we can help you. My vision is legal, financial planning, this and that. I can do everything for you. Well, no, we had to start somewhere, and we had to do it right. We had to develop a strong foundation in that. The attract the right kind of customers. They then start building confidence on us, and then you start sort of rolling out other things, which is part of your vision, and that's what you wanted to do. But when you're starting, you need to start with more focused approach, which could be part of your overall broader, bigger vision. But you need to take that first step, and you need to take that first step right, because that will build your confidence.
We can't be all things to all men in our first year of business.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right.
Right, so I think there's some really sound principles behind everything you've said there with regards to, market share, planning, vision, competitive advantage, niche, specialization. There's probably 20 years of learning there in 20 minutes. So thank you for sharing that, Dinesh. I hope people are listening and taking away, what we can take away from there. I'd also just like to explore, if you don't mind, so we've spoken about newer businesses and what they need to consider, when we're starting to think about competitive advantage and increasing our market share. But you also touched on, when you are established, I loved what you said around sometimes we have to go and create our own market, for what we look for, because the market share is just not there. So what do you think the struggles are? But maybe even your biggest struggle, or what you see in the market for businesses who are perhaps 10 years, and they're looking to increase their market share. What do they need to consider at that point? I guess I'm asking you just to dive a little bit deeper into the point you made around we have to go and create our own markets.
Yeah. So that again, because when they're at a point and they think, well, the business is at has been a successful business and is at a certain point, the business owners then start to think, okay, what's the next point? Because if you're not growing, you start going backward, and that's a normal principle in any business. So sometimes you have to just keep growing to stay sort of stable. So the question then becomes is that, okay, well, how are you going to address that growth aspect, whether that it's just required for you not to shrink, or you're going to go beyond because you're going to have to put the effort anyway, and you want to keep increasing your size. So at that point, it depends on how ambitious the business owner or the business sort of management is. So if they're ambitious to because they haven't reached their full potential, or they haven't reached the level where they're happy as business owners, whether it's addressing their goals in life, in their business, that could be money, lifestyle, whatever, legacy, succession, whatever. So once those questions are answered, then you have an objective. Okay, where I want to take this business to, and that could mean I want to double. I'm a $5 million business. I have to take it to a $10 million business, because that's what my goal is, because I have to attain a certain value so that I can either sell it off, or have a succession plan, or that will give me enough for retirement, whatever those questions are. So you start with those questions, you have an answer, and then you establish a plan. Okay, what are you going to do? Now, taking that business from $5 to $10 million now requires some sort of planning. Of course, if you got enough capital behind you, or if there's finance available easily, you can go and start doing some acquisitions. Let's say if you are running few Domino's pizza stores, and you say, well, I'm having 5, and I'm going to grow it to 10, and that will give me enough double size because each store is making an X amount of profit. Or you go to you go to your franchisor, you say, that territory is available, that territory, that, you go and take those. Or if a new store is not available by the franchisor, you say, well, I have to go and acquire an existing one. If there's, he's ready to sell, someone is ready to sell, you have to pay a goodwill. So, all those market forces come in. So that's just one example. Any other business which is not a straightforward, you can go and acquire. Then you have to study the market size and how am I going to penetrate into that market if I can't just go and do a simple acquisition. The only way, perhaps for a short time till I see an opportunity, is to keep growing organic growth. And then again, the organic growth then comes with its own challenges. You need to have a strong marketing strategy for you to be able to acquire more customers, more business, and depending on the nature of the business. If it's a service business, a lot depends on relationships. It needs a lot of bandwidth, personnel resources rather than just capital. Or if you're selling goods or manufacturing certain items, then you just involves more capital. You just increase your capacity and you advertise more, and the business just naturally grows. But sometimes all those things have very restrictive capability, because if you do this market study right, and you realize, because otherwise you'll be wasting all the money and resources and time not heading into the right direction, because you've not done the market study and you don't even know market penetration is going to help you or not. So then market expansion through diversification or creating your own market sort of strategies come into place. Then you say, okay, well, what are the alternate products and services? What are the associate kind of product or services which I can develop? And then you start sort of evolving into that direction. Yeah, and that could be those other things are already available, but it gives you a competitive advantage when you combine that into one product, or that thing is, that sort of could be totally missing in the market, or it's not enough availability and there is a market demand. So there is all that research and analysis will come into play to see, okay, well, what are the consumers looking for? And in that sort of need analysis, that particular solution is missing in the market, and can I create that because it's ancillary to my existing business? So it just goes into another level of sort of research, but it depends on what your growth strategy is.
I think I got a few things from there again, which you always bring it back to, Dinesh, which I love. Is first of all, what does the business owner want?
Yeah.
What are your outcomes for the business and your exit strategy for the business? Another important learning there was more market share doesn't necessarily mean better business, more profit.
Yeah. So
do your planning there around the resources required to sustain that market growth, and is it working? And the third thing is, a mighty lot about business, Dinesh. You're in a really great position to help business owners create that plan, uncover stones that they might not have looked under, with regards to what are the ways I can grow my business, what's going to work for me, and how do we take those perhaps financial risks based on outcomes that we've looked at before we start. You've really shared. On you go.
No, so most often, generally, that misconception is there that, well, how much should I spend, or whether it's a wasteful resource for me, to spend, overly on my resources and my finances on, creating some sort of a plan or taking the right advice. But that costs you in the long run anyway. So, and that's what sort of small startup businesses, but when even at the growth phase, the businesses who want, but they have more affordability to spend on it. But if the business owner doesn't know what their goals and objective to achieve out of it, there's not going to be a motivation. And if there's not a motivation, it's not going to have the right leadership to motivate the team under you to help you to achieve that.
And there's a whole other interview right there.
Yeah.
Because business is hard, right? You need huge amounts of motivation in order to get you there and to get you to this level. So Dinesh, you've given us heaps and heaps and heaps of tips there. I hope everybody appreciates the level of, or the years of experience and wisdom that are coming through in the conversation. So if you don't mind me asking then, Dinesh, what's next for you? Without sharing all your secrets, what is your plan? Is it world domination?
Not really domination. As I said, it just it comes back to what your vision is, and I think our main vision, which we started the journey with, was to reaching the top 100 goal. We're gradually getting there, and I think that has kept the team very motivated. So my immediate and long-term goal is just to create more leaders within the Fortuna Group, so that it can keep moving forward beyond me. So that's always hard work, but that's what you have to do as a leader. You have to create more leaders.
Yeah. Look, Dinesh, thank you very much. I really value all your time. As I said, many years of nuggets and wisdom in there. I'd like to say to anybody, if they're looking for growth, or they're looking to have a conversation, or they don't know what's next in their stage of growth, that to reach out to Fortuna Advisory Group and ask the question around what's next for me and my business. Hopefully that's all right.
Great, thank you. Yeah, sure. Hope I've delivered some value, and
absolutely
always open to educate more business owners starting their journey. So my pleasure.
Thank you very much, Dinesh, and I look forward to speaking to you again.
Thank you so much, Lorraine, and see you soon. Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to District 32, Immersion, Inspiration for Ambitious Business Owners with Big Dreams.